which is a review of interlanguage syntax, language transfer, and language universals. So guys, are you all ready? Okay, thank you. Let's start. Next slide please, Ms. Makamay. So by the way guys, I'm Gerald Mako. I was assigned to discuss the introduction. Interlanguage has been the main development of field research on second language acquisition. A linguistic framework utilized by speakers of second languages is called interlanguage. When learners make an effort to communicate in the target language, they develop this language. The learner's native tongue has an impact on interlanguage because they use it to comprehend and organize the second language or to make up for existing skill gaps. Next slide, please. So according to Richard et al. 1996, interlanguage is one of the kinds of language that can be produced by second language learners in the process of acquiring or learning a new language. Selinker also explained about the interlanguage identification. The first one is utterance in the learner's native language that produced by learner. And the second one is interlanguage utterances that produced by the learners. And the last is target language utterances produced by native speakers of the target language. People can analyze the interlanguage happened by a meaningful performance of the learner's native language. Next slide, please. Thus, statistics that determine language universal and language transfer as a major suggested source of influence on second language acquisition. To observe and ascertain how language learning and universality act to assess the success of the study. This was the basis of the constructive analysis hypothesis, which relates learner difficulty to differences between the target language and the native language. A systematic comparison between the target language, the second language, and the native language, the first language, is the subject of contrastive analysis, the second language. Contrastive analysis can anticipate these challenges that is a learner will encounter while mastering the target language. In an effort to comprehend the mechanisms at learning the syntax of a second language, it has become clear that we must take target language generalization and approximation into account target language. However, it is equally obvious that an explanatory theory of second language, the target language cannot be used as a basis for acquisition alone. The investigations of language transmission and the learning of the second language has had a strange history. But it was clear to educators and researchers associated with learners of second language who transfer, or those who use the first language, were not the only active person learning a second language. In one sense, not really. Transfer from native could be seen in a learner's product language, but one could also come across situations where transfer occurs. Contrastive analysis predicted that this could have happened, but it did not.
Good day, everyone. I am Shanami Makamay. So we have here the framework of the study. So we would anticipate the mirror image relationship between speakers of language A learning language B and speakers of language B learning language A, given the view of language transfer that was assumed inside the contrastive analysis framework. Similarities would promote problem-free learning, while differences would result in errors in both directions. Language transfer ought to be symmetrical if it were just a matter of differences and similarities. This means that speakers of two languages would be equally likely to adopt aspects of their original language when learning the other if the two languages differed in some way. What is transferred is a key issue in language transfer studies. What linguistic elements are selected by the learner as a means of transferable? Zobel 1980 puts the explanation for this discrepancy into the framework of linguistic typology. It is a linguistic studies that classifies language according to their structural features to allow their comparison. So, the adult L2 learners are following a developmentally motivated interlanguage structure which promotes L1 transfer.
So, good day everyone, I'm Gian Perlompas. So we have presented here relevant claims that support the research study. Interlanguage is a concept in the field of the second language acquisition. In recent studies, transfer has been examined from an increasing number of the perspectives, and it has been observed that first language influences occur not only as direct linguistic reflexes. Zobel 1980A, 1980B, and 1982 views transfer and developmental influences not as two opposing processes, but rather as the interacting ones. He argues that the effect of the L1 can be manifest in a prolongation or delay in the restructuring of an interlanguage rule, or in the number of rules traversed on the path from the acquisition of one form to another. Next slide. Ardham and Hamburg 1983 proposed that transfer be viewed in its original psychological sense as a facilitation of learning. Adhemian 1976 claimed that interlanguages are natural languages. If this is the case, then we would expect that whatever universal constraints hold for natural languages would also hold true for interlanguages. It is important to note, however, that the relationship between universals and internal languages is one of the most to be established empirically, one which needs to be tested against internal languages data and not accepted a priori. Next slide. Kampf 1982 presented evidence from untortured learners to suggest that the tense aspects system of those learners did not correspond to the system of either the NL or the TL. In August 1979, I also presented data from second language learners relating to this particular universal. Next presenter.
So, allow me to present the results and discussion of this study. A theory of language transfer requires that we have some ability to predict where the phenomenon in question will and will not occur. In this regard, contrastive analysis alone falls short. Its simply is not predictive. Language transfer seems to be predictable in a probabilistic sense. We are able to restrict the range of transfer. Some things will not probably will happen. The behavior of an individual learner is not absolutely predictable, but he or she operates with given constraints and within a range of possibilities. So, relating the two issues dealt with in this paper, we find that language transfer interacts with language universals in interesting ways. If we consider implicational universals or differential aspects of a universal, we find that those elements which are universally are most likely to be transferred. So, two key elements interact to determine if items are transferable in Kellerman's framework. The learner's perception of the L1 to L2 distance and the degree of markedness of an L1 structure are the first and second, respectively. There are grammatical constructions that non-native speakers view as irregular, uncommon, or semantically marky. These objects are heavily marked and less transferable than frequent and regular forms, to use Kellerman's terminology. He describes the first as being language-specific and the second just being language-neutral. Language-neutral aspects are those that the learner feels are shared by at least the native and target languages, whereas language-specific elements are those that the learner considers as specific to his or her language. Transferability is therefore a relative concept in Kellerman's theory. Rutherford offers an alternative viewpoint on what is and is not transferable. In particular, he focused on linguistic typology. He talked about three different types of typological organization, and that is the canonical arrangement, pragmatic word order, and grammatical versus subject and topic prominent languages. He discovered that language transfer is influenced by topic versus subject prominence and pragmatic versus grammatical word order, but not by the traditional pairings of the three main components of a sentence, which is the subject, verb, and object.
So, thank you, Miss Shanna. For the conclusion, in attempting to come to an understanding of the processes involved in acquiring the syntax of a second language, it has become evident that we must consider generalization and approximations of target language structures. However, it is also clear that an explanatory account of second language acquisition cannot be given on the basis of the target language alone. There are additional factors that shape the progress of development. Two major ones have been suggested: language transfer and language universals. What we can conclude is that language universals serve as an overall guiding principle in second language acquisition, interacting with the native language and the target language systems, at times resulting in violations of a proposed universal, at times being consistent with the given universal.
So, implications to language and learning. The importance of this approach is the field of SLA lies in the fact that it can be the first attempt which takes into consideration the possibility of L2 learners' conscious attempts to have control of their language learning. Circum 2000. Therefore, interlanguage theory is important for some reasons. It looks at the second language learner as an active participant because he/she has the ability to form rules from the data he/she might encounter. The study of interlanguage theory might help us in determining what a FL learner knows at a particular point in time and what he/she should be taught. Interlanguage theory helps in understanding the L2 learners' problems better and in providing timely help to such learners. Hence, they can achieve competence in their TL. And IL theory has also brought about significant changes in the teaching methodology, with communicative teaching making its way into the teaching system.